The cafe hummed with a quiet rhythm, the scent of espresso mixing with the subtle sweetness of freshly baked pastries. The afternoon lull stretched longer than usual, leaving only a handful of patrons scattered across the tables. Dinah wiped down the last table by the window, her arms aching from the long shift. The rhythmic clatter of cups and cutlery was all too familiar. Just another day, just another hour closer to paying rent. She checked her phone discreetly. 2 days left before her rent was due. The phone bill sat unpaid. And the tips today, abysmal. Loose change tossed carelessly onto tables by patrons who barely acknowledged her presence. Her manager, an older woman with weary eyes, shot her a silent look of encouragement. "Hang in there." Dinah tried to shake off the fatigue, pulling her ponytail tighter before grabbing her order pad. Then the bell above the door chimed. A young man stepped in, tall and lean, his presence commanding attention despite the simplicity of his attire. A plain shirt and slacks, effortlessly neat. 2 men followed him, subtly blending into the backdrop, their sharp gazes scanning the cafe. Security detail. Dinah hesitated. This wasn't the kind of place that attracted high-profile guests. Then recognition hit. She had seen that face before. Flashed across news channels, printed in tabloids. Barron Trump. A strange nervousness settled in her stomach. But years of waiting tables had taught her one thing: treat every customer the same. With practiced professionalism, she approached his table. "Good afternoon. Can I get you something to start?" Barron looked up, his expression unreadable. "I'll just have a cappuccino and maybe one of those croissants." His voice was even, polite, but reserved. "Absolutely. Anything else?" He shook his head. "That'll be perfect, thank you." Something about his tone made her pause. It wasn't arrogance or disinterest, it was sincerity, as if he genuinely appreciated the interaction. She scribbled the order and turned toward the counter, pushing aside the odd feeling curling in her chest. As she prepared his coffee, she couldn't help but glance back at him. He sat still, posture straight yet relaxed. Unlike most customers, he wasn't lost in his phone or tapping away at a laptop. He simply stared out the window, lost in thought. Occasionally, he took a slow sip of water. By the time the cappuccino and croissant were ready, Dinah had steadied herself. She balanced the tray carefully and walked back to his table. "Here you go," she said, setting the cup and plate down with practiced ease. He looked up, offering a faint smile. "Thank you." "You're welcome. Let me know if you need anything else." As she turned to leave, she felt his gaze linger, not invasive, just observant. Minutes passed. Dinah busied herself clearing tables, refilling sugar containers. Trying to shake off the odd weight of the moment, the cafe remained hushed, the soft hum of background music filling the silence. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Barron pull a pen from his pocket and lean over the receipt. He scribbled something quickly, almost as if he didn't want anyone to notice. Then he folded the paper neatly and tucked it beneath the empty coffee cup. He stood, gathering his phone and coat. Dinah watched him for a moment before forcing herself to focus. "Thank you for coming," she said as he passed by. Barron turned slightly, offering her another small smile. "Have a good day." The words lingered. Dinah stood frozen in the middle of the cafe, watching him exit, his security detail close behind. The bell above the door chimed one last time, and then the room was quiet again. She let out a slow breath, picked up her tray, and made her way to clear his table. The cappuccino cup sat empty, a faint residue of foam clinging to its rim. The croissant plate held only a few crumbs, and there it was, the receipt. Dinah picked it up carefully, the folded paper feeling heavier than it should have been. Her first thought was the tip. Maybe it would be generous. Wealthy customers often left extravagant amounts. But as she unfolded the receipt, her breath caught in her throat. A tip so large it made her stomach drop. For crisp digits, and above it, a handwritten note: "Your kindness and hard work don't go unnoticed. My family has been where you are. Stay strong. Brighter days are coming." Dinah's hands trembled. Her vision blurred as hot tears welled in her eyes. She stumbled back into the chair across from where he had sat. gripping the note as though it might disappear. It wasn't about the money. It was the words, the quiet weight of empathy written in ink by someone she never imagined would notice her existence. For the first time in months, Dinah felt seen. What she didn't know was that her story was about to ripple far beyond the cafe. By morning, it would be everywhere. The next morning, Dinah was jolted awake by the sound of her phone buzzing incessantly. Groggy and confused, she squinted at the screen. Dozens of notifications filled her inbox. Text messages, missed calls, social media alerts. Her phone was practically vibrating off a nightstand. She frowned, unlocking it to check the messages. Dinah, is this real? You're all over the internet, girl. Someone took a picture of the note. It's everywhere. Her stomach flipped. Heart pounding, she clicked on one of the links a friend had sent. It was a news article with a bold headline. Barron, Trump leaves Waitress. A heartfelt note and a life-changing tip. Beneath the headline was a blowy image of the receipt with Barron's words written across it. The comments section was flooded with reactions. This is what we need more of in the world. Incredible. Small acts of kindness go a long way. A wealthy man doing something genuinely kind? Respect. The waitress deserves this. Hard work doesn't go unnoticed. Dinah felt her breath hitch. She had never asked for this kind of attention. It was surreal, overwhelming. She scrolled through more messages, her fingers shaking. A new text appeared from her manager. Dinah, reporters are at the cafe asking for you. What do you want me to tell them? She sat up straight, fully awake now. Reporters. Her hands tightened around the phone. Her first instinct was to avoid them, to go to work as if nothing had changed. But deep down, she knew there was no escaping. The story wasn't just hers anymore, it belonged to the world now. When Dinah arrived at the cafe, a small crowd had already gathered outside. Reporters with microphones and cameras stood near the entrance, and curious onlookers whispered among themselves. She hesitated before stepping inside. Heart racing. Her co-workers immediately turned to her, their faces a mix of excitement and disbelief. You're famous, one of them whispered with a grin. Her manager approached, looking both proud and concerned. They want a statement, she said gently. I can tell them you're not comfortable talking. If that's what you want. Dinah swallowed hard. She had never been one for the spotlight. But something about the note, the message Barron had left, made her think. If this moment could remind people of the power of kindness, maybe it was worth speaking up. She took a deep breath. I'll talk. Her manager gave a small nod before stepping outside to address the media. A few moments later, Dinah followed, shielding her eyes from the flashing cameras. A reporter immediately stepped forward. Dinah, can you tell us how you felt when you read the note Barron Trump left you? Dinah hesitated, then spoke honestly. It was unexpected, she said. It wasn't just about the money. The words meant more. It reminded me that hard work doesn't go unnoticed, and that kindness still matters. Another reporter chimed in. Did you recognize Barron Trump when he first walked in? I did, she admitted. But I treated him like any other customer. I never expected anything in return. More questions followed, some about her life, others about Barron. She answered carefully, making sure to keep the focus on the message, not the fame. When the interview ended, she let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. As she walked back inside, a customer sitting near the counter smiled at her. That was brave, they said. People need to hear stories like this. Dinah nodded. Maybe they did. Days passed, but the story refused to die down. News outlets covered it. Social media kept sharing it. People from all over the country sent messages of support. Some even came to the cafe just to meet her, to say they had been inspired. And then, something she never expected happened. One evening, as she was finishing up a shift, her manager approached her, holding out a phone. You're not going to believe this, she said, handing it over. On the other end of the call was a representative from a major morning news show. They wanted Dinah to come on air and share her experience. Dinah's heart pounded. A television interview? It was one thing to talk to reporters outside the cafe, but this was national. She almost declined. Almost. But then she thought about the note, about Barron's words. Brighter days are coming. She took a deep breath. Okay, she said, I'll do it. The morning of the interview, Dinah stood backstage at the studio, her nerves threatening to consume her. The producer gave her a reassuring smile as she adjusted her microphone. You're going to be great, they said. When she stepped onto the stage, the lights felt blinding, the cameras intimidating. But the host's warm smile put her at ease. Dinah, your story has touched millions, the host began. Can you take us back to that moment when you found the note? Dinah nodded, hands clasped together. I had just finished my shift, she said. It had been a long day. When I picked up the receipt, I wasn't expecting anything extraordinary. But then I saw the words and it just hit me. Someone had seen me. Someone had acknowledged my struggle. The host leaned in. Barron Trump's note said, Brighter days are coming. Do you believe that? Dinah thought for a moment, then smiled. I do now. The audience applauded and Dinah felt something inside her shift. Maybe she hadn't asked for this attention, but if it meant spreading hope, reminding people that kindness mattered, then maybe, just maybe, it was all worth it. After the interview, Dinah's life changed in ways she never imagined. Job offers came in. Strangers reached out with support. Even her financial worries began to fade as people donated to help her through tough times. But through it all, she never forgot the lesson in that simple, handwritten note. Kindness could change lives. And sometimes the smallest gestures could ripple further than anyone ever expected. Epilogue. A year later, Dinah sat in a small cafe, not the one she used to work at, but one she now owned. The place buzzed with warmth, laughter, and the scent of freshly brewed coffee. On the wall behind the counter, framed for all to see, was a single receipt. Barron's note. She had kept it as a reminder of where she had been, of how a stranger's kindness had changed everything. As she wiped down a table, a young waitress approached. There's a customer asking for you, she said, motioning toward the front. Dinah turned, and there, standing by the door, was Barron Trump. She smiled. Good to see you again. He nodded. I had to come by. I heard about everything, and I just wanted to say I knew you'd find your brighter days. Dinah exhaled, feeling the weight of the past year lift. Thank you, she said, voice steady, for everything. Barron simply smiled. It was never about me. It was about you. And with that, he turned to leave, the cafe door chimming softly behind him. Dinah stood there for a moment, then looked up at the framed note on the wall. Brighter days had come indeed.